Learn how to create, sustain, and scale up your print-on-demand business with the latest tips, guides, and strategies to help you start selling and making money today. Welcome to the Sales on Demand Show. And here's your host, Adam Schneider.
Hey everybody, welcome back. SalesOnDemandShow.com, Spotify, YouTube, everywhere. This is episode 34, and we're still talking about brand building because why not? But this episode is going to be very, very useful. I encourage you to listen to the entire thing, even if you start listening and you're like, well, this doesn't apply to me. It eventually will apply to you. I guarantee it. I absolutely guarantee it. No matter what you're selling, even if you're not selling print on demand, this episode is going to apply to you. This episode actually could be listened to by anybody running a business, but I don't know. Print on demand sellers really need to pay attention to this kind of thing. So today we are talking about not how to make sales, but how to keep the money from when you make the sale. I mean, I can sit here all day and tell you how to make sales. It's not actually that tough to make sales on Amazon, on Etsy, even with paid traffic. But the trick is getting the most money out of those sales as you possibly can. All right, so let's introduce. Here's what's happening with me. So sales are all over the place. It's pretty normal that this happens. I just had the entire weekend that was basically dead, like so dead. And I was kind of curious about this because before I would have been panicking. Now I just understand that selling goes up and down, and it's just kind of the way it works. I mean, this isn't a regular job. You can't expect any kind of regularity in the sales. They're going to go up and down. You're going to get a day that's like amazing and then followed by a day where you might not make any sales at all. That's just how this works. However, overall sales are trending upwards. I am almost 3 times higher than I was last year. Some of my products that sold really well this last year are already selling well this year, and I fully expect that they're going to continue to sell extremely well. So I'm going to need to make sure that they stay in stock. I was looking up because Amazon was just oddly dead for me. And sometimes when something like that happens, it means that Amazon is making changes behind the scenes. So I looked it up, and sure enough, there's a ton of sellers. But it's not just Amazon, it's also Etsy. This weekend was dead for everybody. eBay, Etsy, Amazon. So it's probably just, a consumer thing, not an Amazon thing. So here's some trends to watch for. Fulfillment by Amazon. If you've got anything that's starting to sell, and even if it's not a regular sale kind of thing, you're not getting, a sale a day, that is a potential product to send for fulfillment by Amazon, and you still have lots and lots of time to send it in. But you don't have unlimited time. You have, I would say, a month and a half. If you order and send it in within a month and a half of right now, then it'll be there in time for Christmas, usually. However, send it in now, and you can restock it just before the deadline, before Christmas, and sell even more. Also, if you start selling it really well now, by the time Christmas hits, it'll be ranked higher. There will be reviews on it, and it'll sell even better. So don't wait till the last minute to send in your stock. Send it in now. So what are trends to watch for? Everything. We're coming up on quarter 4, so just start listing anything that you can think of. It doesn't have to be, nor should it be, specifically Christmas related. In fact, Christmas related stuff is usually not the best kind of thing to post anyway, unless Well, if you want to, you can, but I don't expect it to do amazingly well. People just buy things that they normally buy, but more of them. Halloween is coming up. It's not an insanely busy holiday, but you can get a few sales out of that one. Also, Thanksgiving. I guess Remembrance Day might be a good one. I don't usually make products for Remembrance Day because I don't know, it just feels weird trying to make money off of war. That's not something I like to do. But yeah, back to school, still a thing. So here's some things that you should do this week. On Etsy, if you have any listing that sells decently well, if it's selling well right now, it'll sell much better come Christmas. But one thing that you can do to take advantage of even more customers is create a customizable version of that product. And then if anybody looks at that product and says, oh, well, I'd like to put my mom's name on this, I'd like to put my dad's name on it, then they can order your product and then you can manually create it. Man, I can't talk today. Or you can integrate your Etsy with one of the customizable suppliers, which I think the only one that I know of is Print Tech. And they have an Etsy integration that allows you to automatically send customized products. And there's a whole bunch of products, not just coffee mugs. It's T-shirts. There's a ton of different products they have. It's actually a huge list. But it costs $9.99 a month. So now that I'm talking about a monthly cost, let's get into today's main topic, keeping the profit. So like I said, making sales relatively easy. I mean, especially at this time of year. You start listing, you get to like 100 listings on Etsy and maybe 500 on Amazon. You'll start to see clicks and sales. If you don't, then you got to ask yourself, what am I doing wrong? Like if you're just making these generic products based on something that you think is funny and it doesn't sell, well, that's because the marketplace is not you. Your brain is not a very good, reliable source of ideas. You need to go out and see what's actually selling. So again, doing some research on Etsy, you should find a couple of trending ideas. Make your own version. Don't copy what someone else is doing directly. Although, I mean, using the phrase that someone else is using is not considered to be copying. But making your own version of that is perfectly justifiable. Using your own little graphics on it, that kind of thing makes it your own, and it's legal to do. Unless it's a trademarked phrase, you can make your own version of a trending phrase. So, again, we're going to talk about two different scenarios. Number one being a new seller, and I see this all the time. New sellers usually come into the marketplace and they're trying to make some money. But in the very beginning, you're not making any money. You've got to build up your listings and make a bunch of products in order to actually sell anything. So it's easy for new sellers to become discouraged and look at all these little fees they're paying. So, for example, the Amazon professional account, $39 a month, US dollars a month. That's basically $50 Canadian, maybe a little more like $55. That's a lot of money if you have no sales to cover that fee. And it's every single month that this comes out. So that's like $500 a year. And a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to pay that. They're like, well, I'll use the individual account because Amazon does offer an account that's free. But I don't recommend that. I don't recommend using the Amazon individual account. Go straight to the professional account. And the reason is that the professional account is a business account. Individual accounts are hobbies. Okay? If you really have $0, find the money somewhere. Buy ground beef instead of steak for a month. Make it work. do whatever you need to do to get that Amazon professional account, because if you want to scale up your business, you're going to need that along with an integration. I use the Gear Bubble integration, which lets me create a design, launch it on whatever products I want to, and I click the upload button. It automatically lists it on Amazon for me. I can do probably 100 designs a day using that automated system. Listing on Amazon manually takes a very long time, and it can be a technical process. So if you want to scale up your business, if you really want to do well on Amazon, I think the Amazon professional account is a vital part of a business. Also, it's very difficult to switch to a professional account later on down the road. Let's say that you start with the individual account and you're like, oh, well, I'll start with this and then I'll upgrade it later. It's actually very hard to do that. And all of the listings that you've created on there are kind of useless. You'll have to configure them with some kind of integration service in order for them to automatically fulfill. Also, the individual seller account has a $1 per sale fee that Amazon professional sellers do not have to pay. So once you reach 40 sales in a month, which, it might take you a little bit of time to get there, but it becomes more practical to have the individual seller, the professional seller account, because it's as many sales as you want for one fee. So if you're a new seller and you're like, I want to really scale up on Amazon, the way to do that is to send some products for fulfillment by Amazon. Okay? Now, figuring out which product you should sell or you should send, that's something that's a little bit harder to do. And I'm probably going to do a few episodes on how to select those products. And I believe I've done one already. Actually, let me look through my list of episodes here and see if I've done one already. Probably. Yes. Episode 27, Fulfillment by Amazon. Go have a listen to that one and see what pops up. All right. So, as a new seller, you want to avoid unnecessary costs. I've already told you that an Amazon professional account and an integration is a vital component. Don't skimp on those things. But less necessary for your business are things like merchant words, Photoshop, or even PicMonkey. Although PicMonkey is only $7.99 a month, you could use something that is free to create your designs. You could even use, there's a couple of free programs. One is called Inkscape. This is probably the best of any of the free programs. Inkscape is kind of like I don't want to call it a Photoshop clone because it has a bunch of different features, but it's like you can make text on there and it's fairly easy to download it. There is a bit of a learning curve with Inkscape, and I don't really use it that much because I do use PicMonkey. PicMonkey is really easy to use. It's great for, sort of low complexity text designs, but, Inkscape is another one that you can use. You can also, and I don't know, every time I talk about an app on the iPhone, the cost of it changes. So there are apps, one of them is called WordSwag. That's also a pretty decent program. I think it's now a monthly cost. I'm not 100% sure about that. It used to be free, and then it started costing money, a one-time purchase, and now I'm pretty sure that there's a monthly fee for it. But it is also a pretty good text design little app, and you can use it anywhere, which is great. So what I do with WordSwag is if I'm sitting somewhere and I'm like thinking up these phrases, I'll create a couple of versions in WordSwag, I'll upload them to Dropbox, and then they're right on my Dropbox when I go to my computer to upload or whatever. And then you have to type out a title, which, takes a little bit of time, but it's pretty fast. and it makes a pretty decent looking design. Most people will buy a design made on WordSwag. I usually make a few just to see which one looks the best. Honestly, I couldn't tell you which one looks the best, but I always do that just to give me a few more options. But yeah, there's a little bit of a cost with that, but it's not very much. Photoshop, on the other hand, you do not need Photoshop. I actually just canceled my Photoshop. And here's the thing with Photoshop. And I didn't know this when I first signed up for it. I was using it to make really nice looking mock-ups. I don't know why I was doing that. I just thought it might work. I was doing paid traffic online on Facebook, and so I wanted nice looking mock-ups. Plus, I just thought it'd be kind of fun to have Photoshop. And it is kind of a fun program to learn. The newest version is actually pretty easy to use. You can do some pretty amazing things with it. But, I mean, honestly, it is not a vital part of selling, at least in the way that I sell. So if you're just selling on Amazon and Etsy, you do not need Photoshop. It's $30 a month for Photoshop, or $30 Canadian. Maybe it's $19 US. But they make you sign up for 12 months. And so I have 1 month left, and then it's done. And I'm not getting it again. What you can do is if you have, you can actually use an older version of Photoshop, the kind that used to come on a CD. You remember those big plastic discs that everybody used to have, and we all thought it was the greatest thing ever after having used the floppy disks forever? Yeah. If you have Photoshop on a CD, and your computer actually has a CD-ROM, then you can just use a older version of Photoshop. It won't have the newest features, of course, but whatever. If you don't really need those newest features, then just use that. And that'll be pretty much free. You can probably find one for $5 from somebody who's got the disc. So those are my recommendations. GIMP is also a free software for creating designs. I have no idea how to use GIMP. Never really used it. I downloaded it. I have it on my computer. I could not figure out how to make it work, and I was far too impatient to sit there and keep trying when I have other options that are better. So that's a way to avoid unnecessary costs. So what are the costs that a lot of new sellers look at and they're like, ooh, which it doesn't seem like a big cost at first, but it can add up. And that is the listing fee for Etsy. So when you create a listing on Etsy and you publish it, you pay 20 cents for the initial fee. And then when it expires, which is, I think, 3 months, 4 months, I'm not even sure, you pay 20 cents to renew it. So a lot of people look at that and they're like, well, that seems like a costly thing. 20 cents for each listing. If you have 100 listings, that's, I don't know, $50 right there. And honestly, 100 listings on Etsy isn't really a lot. But, people look at $50 and they're like, I don't really want to spend that if there's no guarantee of the money coming back. So, yes, you have to choke down that 20-cent fee when you first list the item. But if you're listing right now, I would recommend setting all of your listings to manually renew instead of automatically renew. I had a lot of my listings set to automatically renew in the beginning, so they'd automatically just renew and I'd be billed that 20 cents. But what I've started doing now is I'm very rigorous about eliminating listings that aren't selling. So my Etsy shop has 200 listings, maybe like 205 right now. But every single one of those listings has got at least one sale on it. And even some, if a listing has made one sale, but I've renewed it like 5 times, then I eliminate it. I don't want to have to renew a listing 5 times just to try and milk one sale out of it. So anything that's got 2 sales on it, I keep. Anything that I've renewed just one time, I'll keep it for one more renewal just to see if it'll perform. But anything that renews 3 times, with no sale, it's gone. I don't renew it, or I delete it, or whatever. Mostly I just don't renew it, and it sits in my expired listing folder, which has another 200 listings in it. And then, sometimes I periodically go through that and look at anything, and I'm like, well, maybe I can change the title on this to try to get a little bit more traffic out of it, and I might do that. But going back through old listings is actually not a very good use of your time, and renewing listings that don't sell is not a very good use of your money. So set all your listings to manually review, and then go through and just keep an eye on them. Anything that sells, renew it. Anything that doesn't sell, well, there you go. It doesn't sell, so get rid of it. All right, so the second scenario, just like I did last episode, I'm going to talk about the bigger sellers. So if you're a, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $10,000, $100,000 a month seller, I mean, honestly, if you're a $100,000 a month seller, why don't you come and run the podcast, and I'll just listen to you talk about it. That offer is actually open. So if you want to come on here and you're a big time seller, you want to talk about what you're doing, I'm open to listening to anybody. I want to learn as much as I can. And of course, everybody listening to this podcast would love to learn as well. So bigger sellers, there's other costs that you need to watch out for, and this is where I am at right now. So I'm looking at banking fees, currency conversion fees, because I live in Canada. All of my bank accounts are in Canadian dollars, and I'm still working on transferring everything over to a US dollar account. But I just found this out. I have to make sure it's the right kind of US dollar account, or it won't work. I don't know why the banking system is so complicated like that. I suspect it has to do with the fact that the government's involved in banking, and anytime the government gets involved in something, it becomes way more complicated than it needs to be. But that's just the way it is. So one of the things that I'm working to do is have all of my payments, all of the money I'm making, go straight into a US dollar account. Right now it's going into my Canadian dollar account, and it gets converted. And I'm losing on that conversion rate. And then when I buy more stock, I'm losing again. So it sucks. And I can see exactly how much I'm losing because I look at the conversion rate every time I get a payment. And I'm like, oh, man, that was like 7%. Plus, I just don't want to have to fiddle with the conversion rate between Canadian dollars and US dollars. I just want everything to be US dollars in and out. And that way, it's just separate from everything else that I'm doing. So watch out for banking fees. Try to get a bank account that has the least monthly fee. Don't get a whole bunch of bank accounts and then leave them sitting there forever. This is something that I was bad at from a long time ago. I'd get this bank account for business, and it's like $7 a month. And those fees, they just add up, right? So you don't want to be paying those fees because that's your money. Keep your money in your pocket. So here's another thing that bigger sellers tend to do. We tend to go out and pay for integrations or services, and then we don't use them because we don't have time. So I had a whole bunch of services running. I had a mailing list service with Aweber. I was paying $20 a month for that. I had a whole bunch of little things that I was paying for, and I look at it and I'm like, I'm not even using this, but I feel like I don't want to cancel it because I'm like, I might use it. But if you know anything about hoarding, this is classic hoarding behavior. And instead of hoarding like old, binders from school or something like that, I'm hoarding these software programs or these services that I'm paying for and don't use. But I'm justifying it by looking and saying, well, I will use that. But I decided I was going to get absolutely dead serious about eliminating all of the extra costs. So I went and canceled 3 or 4 different things. So right now I've got Merchant Words still running, and that's pretty much it. I've canceled Photoshop. I used to have a program called Marmalade, Etsy Rank. Those were all programs that were nice to have, but I never used them. And when I did use them, I just didn't find that they were really paying for themselves. The one program that might pay for itself, if you're really serious about Etsy, is Etsy Rank. And it's actually a fairly inexpensive program, but again, if you're just a beginning seller, I wouldn't bother, because you can get all the information you want with good old-fashioned hard work. It's not even that hard work. If you just go and you do some searches and you're looking for good products to sell, that's the kind of work I'm talking about. Just sit down, take some time, and do the work. It's free to do work. Don't pay for a service that's supposed to save you time if you're not even using it. So, the other thing that I found I was paying a lot for are sponsored ads on both Etsy and Amazon. Now, Etsy did something really idiotic, and they changed their promoted listings. So if you've been following Etsy, if you've been selling on Etsy for a little while, you'll probably know that there used to be two different ways to advertise on Etsy. There was promoted listings, which meant that your product, when somebody went on Etsy and searched up Mugs for Dad or whatever, your product would come up as a sponsored listing. And it would say sponsored listing or sponsored ad. And if somebody clicked on it, you'd pay a little bit of money for that click. You don't pay for the actual displaying of the ad. You only paid for when people click on it. And you could change how much you were bidding on a click, and that was pretty much the only thing you could actually change. But they even got rid of that. So the other way of advertising was with Google Shopping, and I tried this. Etsy was like, "Oh, we'll display your Etsy product on Google searches," and I was like, "All right, fine. Let's see how it works." So I turned on the Google Shop or the Google advertising, and it was a complete money waster. Like, it spent like $40, not a single sale. And I was like, this is trash. This is seriously trash. Because the way that you make money on Google is to manually manage your campaigns. So Google Shopping, and I've advertised with Google Shopping before, is that you go on there and you look at the keywords that people are clicking on, and any keyword that's doing well, you bid higher for that keyword. And any keyword that's getting a lot of clicks but is not making any sales, you put that in the negative search term. But with Etsy's connection to Google, you can't do any of that. Etsy is just shoveling money at Google like, okay, display this product. And you have no control over where they're displaying it or anything like that. The keyword bids, the search terms used. They'll just pull the search terms out of your title, but you might be displaying for search terms that have nothing to do with what your product is, and people are clicking on it, and it's costing you money. So Etsy, in their infinite stupidity, and I'm sorry guys, if you think Etsy was smart about this, you're wrong. This was stupid. They were trying to make the process simpler for people. Now, Etsy is good at making their platform simple to use. They are very good at doing that. But there's a certain point where it becomes so simple that it's useless. And there's no way for people like me who are good at going in and, massaging our advertising to make the most money, we can't get in there and do that anymore. So nowadays, there's two settings for advertising, on and off, and that's it. So it's pretty much, I don't know. I turned it on and watched it spend a bunch of money, and I'm like, no, I'm good. So I shut it off. I might turn it on again and just see how it does closer to Christmas, because I did make a decent amount of money from the promoted listings last year. I probably made like a third of my sales at least from sponsored listings. So it was worth it for me to have that running. But not if it's going to be unprofitable. So So that's, and then sponsored ads on Amazon are fantastic. Amazon gives you a ton of control over which keywords you want your product to be displayed for. In fact, they almost give you too much control because it's a complicated system to advertise on Amazon. But let me just summarize it for you. Okay, so if you've got a fulfilled by Amazon product, start advertising it with a manual keyword campaign, not an automatic campaign, a manual campaign, and then pick 10 keywords that relate to your product. So it could be like gift for mom, gift for dad, birthday for mom, dad Christmas gift. Just pick 10 of those kinds of things. Throw them up there. Use whatever bid they suggest and leave it run for a week or two or maybe even a month and see how it does. If you're getting a whole bunch of clicks and no sales, then go into your sponsored ad campaign and see what's spending money and not producing sales. And whatever it is, either lower the bid or turn it off. You can turn off each keyword. You can turn them back on. You can lower the bid. You can raise the bid. There is a lot of little options that you can select here. So it's the complete opposite of Etsy, where Etsy doesn't give you any control. Amazon gives you complete control. And you can even tell Amazon that you want to adjust your bids up and down if there's a chance of making a sale. So I'm not even talking about that. Just like a basic campaign with a basic bid of like 75 cents. So now make sure you go in there and manage your campaigns, though, because if you don't, they'll spend a bunch of money and maybe they'll make some sales, but you want profitable campaigns, not money-losing campaigns. Even though a money-losing campaign can still be useful for getting your product noticed, it's still losing money, right? You don't want to lose money if you can avoid it. Now, for a coffee mug or a t-shirt or something like that, the profit margin is usually 35%. So if you're finding your Amazon campaigns are spending more than 35% to get the sale, try to get them under that 35% because otherwise you're losing money. 35% is kind of like break even. So you just sort of, you made a sale, but you didn't make any money, which again, it can increase your ranking for that, for a keyword or something like that. So it might be useful. But if you can get it under 35%, that's better. All right, so the last thing I'm going to tell you, big sellers, don't lower your prices. New sellers, don't lower your prices. There's a lot of people out there who are like, oh, I'm lowering my prices to $15. So there's a couple of ways that you can keep your prices. I generally want to charge $20. $20 is the minimum. I will sometimes go as low as $18. And $18 is for fulfilled by Amazon products. Because they get free shipping, they're just paying that $18. Now, with fulfilled by Amazon, the fees are a little different, but let's just summarize it and say that you'll pay, that you'll make about, if you charge $20, you'll make about $7 profit off of all of the costs that go into that product. So keep your prices high. Don't slash your prices to $14 for fulfilled by Amazon product unless you're trying to get rid of something and you're not planning to restock it. Keep your prices high, at least $17 for mugs. And if you're selling anything that costs more than a mug, if you're selling a mug that's black or it's a color-changing mug, a lot of people are doing really well selling color-changing mugs as FBA products. Jack your prices up. Stop slashing your prices because you're losing money. Lowering prices does not stimulate sales. I have tested this. Everybody that's been selling has tested this. Lowering your prices does not increase sales. Everybody thinks it does because on a normal product, like groceries or whatever, necessities, lowering your cost does produce more sales. But these are not groceries. People aren't going out and buying a coffee mug because they want to drink coffee out of the mug. It's a gift. And what matters the most 90% of the sale is going to come from what's on that coffee mug. They don't care what it's made of. You could be making that, if you're making your coffee mug out of pressed cardboard and it's going to fall apart in the dishwasher, that's a problem. But, most of the time, it's just a generic coffee mug or a t-shirt. And really, lowering your prices does not stimulate more sales. I'm going to say this until you actually get it. So stop doing that. Also, looking at other people's products and matching their price will not make yours sell any better. I don't do this. In fact, I don't even look on Amazon to see what anyone else is selling most of the time. I launch my own products and I just let them survive on their own. If they're going to sell, they're going to sell. If they don't, they don't. I might once in a while look and see, if there's any trending keywords that I could possibly get into, and then, any new niches that I can get into. But I don't care. If someone's selling the same thing as I am and they're charging less, good for you. Good for you. If you can outdo me in sales, great. But I'm selling pretty well as it is. I'm not lowering my prices because you came into the marketplace. Heck no, man. I'll just make a better product than you and sell it at $20. So, if you are a brand new seller and you have no idea what you're doing and you're like, man, I need more help, there's something that you can do to get lots and lots of help this Christmas season. And I pretty much can tell you right now, if you don't have any training or mentorship, you're leaving money on the table. Like if you are a brand new seller, or even if you think you're experienced a little bit, but you've never had any formal training in this, or you don't have any mentorship on an ongoing basis, you need that. And no, I'm sorry, I can't be your mentor. I do respond to messages from time to time from people who will ask me this and that, but I have limited time, and probably close to November, I'm not going to be able to respond to any messages because I'm going to be busy. I'm going to be crazy busy managing my own business. So you need to join us in the low-hanging system. It's an online training program to teach you how to sell these easy, simple designs. When I say easy, simple designs, I mean that they're easy to make. I don't mean that this system is easy to do, but it is fairly simple. Simple does not mean easy. Easy does not mean simple, right? When I say these two things, they're not the same word. So don't think for 1 second that I'm telling you that this is easy. It's simple. And once you get the hang of it, it gets even more simple and it feels easy. Right now, for me, this feels like the easiest way to make money in the world. But when I first started, it was intimidating and there was a lot of things I had to learn. But I went through that process. I learned how to do these things. And now I'm sitting here just looking at my sales platforms and thinking, man, how can I reach $100,000 in sales this year without barely lifting a finger? I'm not kidding you. That's kind of my mentality right now. I don't want to work for this money. I want this money to just happen. And I've put in the work already. Not a ton of work, but I've already put in the work and now I want it to pay off. So join us in the low-hanging system. Click the link in the description to join. And with that, guys, we'll talk to you next week. So have a good one. Cheers.